Usually when we talk about falling asleep, there's this expectation of simple mechanical gravity.
Oh, yeah. Like you just go totally limp.
Right. Think about the last time you were sitting up on an airplane, you're trying to catch a quick nap in like a middle seat.
The absolute worst place to try and sleep.
It really is. Yeah. And the moment you actually cross that threshold into sleep, your muscles just go slack. Your head bobs violently forward and you snap awake.
Yeah. You get that horrible falling sensation.
Exactly. It's a very predictable cause and effect relationship, between losing consciousness and just entirely losing control of your posture.
It feels completely binary.
Hmm.
Like you are either conscious and actively holding yourself upright, or you are unconscious.
Right.
And at that point, you instantly become this heavy, limp sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
The underlying assumption we all walk around with is that staying upright requires our active, conscious attention.
But then we see practices that completely upend that binary expectation. And that brings us to the mission of our deep dive today.
Which I'm really excited about, by the way.
Me too. We are looking at a strangely simple question that unlocks a massive mystery about the evolution of consciousness for you.
Mhm.
If deep meditation is, biologically speaking, the act of allowing the body to enter a profound sleep-like state while the mind remains awake,
Right.
why doesn't a meditating person just slump over? Like, why don't they do the airplane head bob?
It seems like such a trivial question at first glance, doesn't it?
It really does.
But answering it requires us to completely dismantle everything we think we know about the brain.
Oh, completely.
To solve this mystery, we can't just look at the act of meditation itself. We actually have to rewind the evolutionary clock.
Go way back.
Way back. We have to look at the history of sleep, the physical architecture of the nervous system, and we basically have to fundamentally redefine what the word consciousness actually means.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand why human meditators don't collapse on their cushions, we actually need to look at a completely different environment. We need to figure out why a fish doesn't get swept down a river when it takes a nap.
Which is such a wild thing to think about.
It is.
Because the way humans sleep, specifically our deep, slow-wave sleep, which scientists call N3 sleep, is a massive evolutionary outlier.
We are totally weird when it comes to sleep.
We really are. During human N3 sleep, the electrical activity in our cerebral cortex changes dramatically.
Right.
The neurons start firing in these really slow, synchronized ways.
Almost like they're all chanting together.
Exactly. And because they are all firing together in this slow rhythm, the cortex loses its ability to process complex, differentiated information.
It just shuts down.
Pretty much. The thalamus, which acts as the brain's sensory relay station, essentially closes the gates.
I always think of it like shutting off the main breaker to the house.
That's a great analogy.
Like the lights are out, the appliances are dead, the whole grid is just down. We process almost zero external information, and our subjective experience practically vanishes.
Yeah, and that near-complete suspension of consciousness requires a very strong physical stimulus to overcome, like an alarm clock or a violent shake.
Right, you need something jarring.
But if you consider that from an evolutionary perspective, total unconsciousness is a massive biological vulnerability.
Oh, for sure. If you are entirely unresponsive in the wild, you are completely defenseless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A predator would just walk right up to you. So most of the animal kingdom does not engage in that kind of risky behavior.
No.
For them, sleep is much more like, well, going with your house analogy, it's like dimming the lights while the security cameras keep rolling.
Security cameras are still on. Whales and dolphins are a perfect example of this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They engage in unihemispheric sleep. They literally put one half of their brain to sleep while the other half stays awake.
It's incredible.
It is. The left hemisphere will go into slow wave sleep while the right eye stays open, actively watching the environment.
And they have to do this, mechanically speaking, just to survive.
Because they have to breathe.
Right? They need to time their breathing and surface for air, and obviously they need to monitor for predators.
Mm-hmm.
But this strategy goes much further down the evolutionary tree than just marine mammals.
Yeah, we're talking reptiles, amphibians, fish.
Even invertebrates, like fruit flies and bees, enter what we call a quiet state.
Mm-hmm.
But they never become totally unresponsive.
Which brings us back to the fish in the river.
Yes, the napping fish.
When a fish goes to sleep, it doesn't just float to the surface or get dragged away by the current.
Right. It doesn't go limp like we do on an airplane.
Exactly. It enters this low metabolic resting state, but it keeps its fins slightly extended.
Hmm.
It makes these incredibly subtle, continuous micro movements to hold its position in the water.
And the way it does that is so cool. Fish have this sensory network called the lateral line system running along the sides of their bodies.
Okay.
It's made up of tiny organs called neuromasts, which contain these little hair cells that project right into the water.
Like little antennas.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever the water pressure or the flow changes, those hair cells bend, sending immediate electrical signals to the nervous system.
So even while the fish is technically asleep, that system is just feeding constant physical data into the body.
Constantly. It allows the fish to automatically adjust its fin posture, stay balanced against the current, and remain totally ready to dart away if a predator approaches.
Wow.
It preserves a functional trace of sensory perception.
Okay, but practically speaking, if I'm listening to this right now, I'm probably sitting in traffic or maybe doing the dishes. I'm not swimming in a stream.
Fair point.
So why does a fish's nervous system matter to a human body today?
Well, because we share the exact same ancient tree of life.
Right.
Humans descended from early fish-like ancestors that eventually crawled out of the water and developed into four-limbed vertebrates.
Evolution at work.
Exactly. The biological blueprints that govern those ancient fish did not just get thrown away when we evolved.
They got built upon.
Precisely. They're still in there.
So we basically have an inner fish swimming around inside our nervous system.
Love that phrasing. Yes, we do.
But this raises a massive logistical problem. Wait, so if an animal like a fish is staying perfectly balanced in a moving current while it's resting,
Right.
how is it pulling off those coordinated movements without a conscious thinking brain?
We have to look at the anatomy of the unconscious to answer that.
Okay.
See, we carry a very human bias where we just assume that all complex coordinated movement requires conscious thought.
We give ourselves way too much credit.
We really do. We assume the cerebral cortex, the highly folded, wrinkly outer layer of the brain where human thought and language and abstract decision-making happen, we assume it's the absolute boss of the body.
We think the cortex is the CEO micromanaging every single muscle twitch.
Yes. But the cerebral cortex is actually a relatively recent evolutionary upgrade.
Right. Mammals have a highly complex six-layer neocortex.
And those 6 layers allow for intricate feedback loops and massive information processing power.
But reptiles have a much more primitive three-layer version.
Correct. Birds have a functionally similar but differently structured region. But fish, amphibians, and invertebrates, they have absolutely no cortex at all.
So there's no CEO in the building.
Nope.
Yet they are swimming, walking, balancing, and escaping danger. So who is driving the bus if there is no cortex?
Older, deeper structures handle those tasks. The basic physical operating system of life was perfected millions of years ago, long before the cortex ever arrived on the scene.
Like the brainstem.
Exactly. At the base of the brain, you have the brainstem. This is the most ancient part of the central nervous system.
Right.
It controls the non-negotiable rhythms of life. Breathing, swallowing, and the fundamental timing of locomotion.
And below that is the spinal cord. And honestly, we often think of the spine as just a dumb cable, right? Just carrying messages from the brain to the legs.
Oh, but it is so much more than that.
It's actually a processing center in its own right. It contains these neural networks called central pattern generator, or CPGs. These are localized circuits that can produce complex rhythmic movements, like a fish swimming or a cat walking completely on their own.
What's fascinating here is that these oscillating neural circuits don't need top-down commands from the brain at all.
Really?
Yeah, when one set of motor neurons fires to flex a muscle, it automatically triggers an inhibitory signal to the opposing muscle.
Oh, okay. Creating a rhythm.
Right, a seamless rhythm of movement based entirely on localized sensory feedback.
Wait, so if the brain is removed, a cat's spinal cord can still walk. It sounds like we aren't driving our own bodies half the time.
Really aren't.
I'm struggling with the mechanics here, though. Without the inner ear or the visual cortex mapping the environment, shouldn't a decerebrate body just immediately tip over?
You would think so, right.
Huh.
But the balance and rhythm in those decerebrate cat experiments aren't coming from visual data at all.
Huh.
When the cat is placed on a moving treadmill, the physical stretching of the leg muscles and tendons sends tension signals directly into the spinal cord.
Oh.
The central pattern generators read that mechanical tension and automatically trigger the sequence to step forward.
That's incredible.
The spine is quite literally feeling the ground and reacting to it, maintaining the walking rhythm without any awareness of the room it is in.
And then if you add in the cerebellum, the structure at the back of the brain responsible for fine-tuning posture, you have a highly capable system.
Exactly. And the cerebellum is incredibly well developed in cortex-free animals like fish and birds.
And then on top of that, you have local neural networks called ganglia and reflex arcs.
Oh, reflexes are the best example of this.
Right, like when you accidentally touch a hot stove, your hand jerks back before you even feel the pain.
Yep.
That's a spinal reflex. The heat signal travels to the spine instantly sends a motor command to pull your arm back, and your conscious cortex is only notified of the pain after your hand is already safe.
It didn't have to think about it.
Exactly. It's like a smart home. The
Mhm.
cerebral cortex is the homeowner who sets the broad goals, like, I want to go to the kitchen.
I like that.
But the spinal cord, the brainstem, and the cerebellum are the individual smart thermostats and motion sensors.
Right. They do the actual work.
They are constantly adjusting the temperature, balancing the physical load, and firing the individual muscles without being explicitly told how to do it.
Because the cortex evolved way later
Oh.
just to handle complex learning, abstract planning, and very fine, deliberate motor skills.
Mm-hmm.
The moment-to-moment survival mechanics, the posture, the balancing against gravity that is entirely handled by the ancient primitive systems.
Which pushes us into some pretty deep philosophical waters, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if the spinal cord and the brainstem can sense danger, pull a hand away from a fire, maintain balance in a river, and walk on a treadmill completely independent of the thinking cortex,
Yeah.
do these lower brain regions have a mind of their own?
That question is entirely redefining the frontier of neuroscience right now.
Because for a long time, science treated consciousness like a VIP club.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
The only way to get in was to have a highly developed mammalian neocortex. No cortex, no consciousness.
You were just considered a biological robot reacting blindly to stimuli.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. Wait,
Yeah.
I'm stealing your line.
Go ahead. Here's where it gets really interesting.
So there is a framework called information integration theory.
Okay.
It argues that consciousness isn't about having one specific magic anatomical structure, like a cortex.
Not a location.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is about how information is integrated across whatever network exists.
Yeah.
It actually calculates a value called phi based on the complexity of the connections.
So if a system integrates information efficiently enough, it possesses some primitive form of consciousness.
Right. And if you observe the behavior of animals without a cortex, the biological robot theory falls apart immediately.
Because they're doing complex things.
The network topology of their nervous systems is incredibly complex. It's just distributed differently.
Take the octopus. This is my favorite example.
Oh, the octopus is amazing.
An octopus has zero cortex. By the old rules, it shouldn't have any subjective experience of the world.
Nut.
But an octopus has 500 million neurons, and 2/3 of them are located in its arms.
Which is just wild.
Each arm essentially has its own localized mini-brain capable of independent processing.
Yeah.
And an octopus can figure out how to unscrew a jar to get a crab inside. It can recognize individual human researchers,
Yes.
like spraying water at the one who annoyed it and playing with the one it likes. It engages in play. How do you play without some form of conscious awareness?
You really can't. Play requires evaluating non-threatening variables and responding to them dynamically, which entirely implies awareness.
It has to.
And look at bees. A bee's brain is the size of a sesame seed, completely devoid of a cortex.
Right.
Yet studies have shown they can grasp abstract concepts like same and different.
Wow.
Or fish, the animal we started with. They do not just have blind reflexes. Research suggests they actively experience pain, meaning they have a subjective, negative reaction to tissue damage.
It's an experience, not just a reaction.
Exactly. And they can learn and remember complex navigational routes.
So we really have to look at consciousness as a gradient.
We do.
It is not a light switch that suddenly flipped on when humans showed up.
This raises an important question, though, about what it actually feels like to be those animals.
Yeah, what is their reality?
We are forced to accept that sensory awareness, a primitive, highly functional form of consciousness, is just an ancient tool of survival.
Mm-hmm.
The mammalian neocortex did not invent consciousness. It just added new layers on top of it.
Layers like self-awareness, complex language, abstract reflective thought.
Right. But the baseline experience of being, of navigating the physical world, was perfected by those older structures.
So we have this ancient, distributed, non-conscious operating system quietly running in the background of our nervous systems, perfectly capable of balancing, sensing, and reacting.
Yes.
And with that entirely new understanding of how our bodies actually work, we finally have the tools to solve the core mystery we started with,
We finally made it back.
the upright meditator.
We asked, if meditation puts the body into a sleep-like state while the mind stays awake, why doesn't the medicator collapse like the tired traveler on the airplane?
So what does this all mean?
Well, it means when you sit in deep meditation, you are awake. Your conscious mind, your cortex, is crystal clear.
Right.
But what you're doing is deliberately relinquishing conscious control over your physical form. You are telling the CEO to stop sending motor commands.
And when the CEO steps out, the company doesn't shut down.
Exactly. Control is transferred entirely to the non-conscious brain, the brainstem, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord.
The smart home takes over.
Yes. And because we now know that these ancient systems possess their own primitive awareness and motor regulation, they know exactly what to do.
Wow.
The cortex is awake, so it doesn't trigger the sudden loss of muscle tone that happens when you fall asleep on an airplane.
Because the sleep centers in the brain aren't forcing the body to go limp.
Right. Instead, the cortex just goes quietly offline from a motor perspective.
So they do exactly what the sleeping fish does in the river current.
You got it. The brainstem and the cerebellum take over all the micro-adjustments.
They sense gravity, they read the tension in the muscles, just like the central pattern generators reading the treadmill,
Exactly.
and they perfectly maintain the body's upright posture and balance. The conscious mind lets go, but the ancient survival systems keep the physical architecture perfectly stable.
In human N3 sleep, the messy transition awkwardly shorts out the system, causing the head bob.
Right.
But in meditation, it is a smooth, deliberate handover of power.
So when you are meditating, you aren't fighting gravity with your conscious willpower.
Not at all.
You are literally letting your evolutionary fish take over the job of balancing you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it gives incredible biological weight to concepts we usually treat as purely psychological.
We need.
Well, we constantly use words like the subconscious, the unconscious, or Carl Jung's collective unconscious.
Oh, right.
For a long time, those felt like mystical, abstract ideas, ghosts in the machine.
Like Freud's dark basement of the mind where we hide all our weird impulses.
Exactly. But this anatomical reality grounds those concepts perfectly. The subconscious isn't a metaphor.
It's real?
It is literal biology. It is the millions of years of evolutionary programming distributed across your brainstem, your cerebellum, and the neural networks in your spinal cord.
That is amazing.
Is the primitive awareness of the fish, the reptile, and the early mammal, all still alive and functioning perfectly inside you, supporting your conscious mind every single second of the day.
Wow. We've gone on quite the journey today.
We really have.
I mean, you started out just wondering why someone doesn't fall over on a meditation cushion.
Seems so long ago now.
Right. But to get the answer, we traveled through the sleep habits of whales. We examined how the lateral line system keeps a fish balanced in a river. We realized that a spinal cord can coordinate walking based purely on mechanical tension, and acknowledged that the distributed intelligence of an octopus fundamentally changes how we define consciousness altogether.
It really highlights how knowledge compounds when we connect the biology to the psychology and the evolutionary history to our daily habits.
It all comes back to our own spinal cords acting as these ancient, unsleeping guardians of our balance. It shifts how you view your own physical form. You aren't just one mind driving a biological vehicle. You are a whole ecosystem of evolutionary history working together to navigate the room you are sitting in right now.
Which leaves us with a rather provocative thought to chew on.
Go right now.
If our spinal cords, our brainstems, and our cerebellums possess their own primitive, non-conscious awareness,
Okay.
if they are fully capable of processing the physical world and reacting perfectly without our conscious cortex getting involved, what happens when we go on autopilot in our daily lives?
Oh, wow.
Think about the phenomenon of highway hypnosis.
Oh, that is terrifying.
You drive all the way home from work, you pull into your driveway, and suddenly you realize your conscious mind was completely spaced out for the last 20 miles.
You don't remember the turns, the traffic lights, or the lane changes.
Exactly. So if your conscious cortex wasn't actively paying attention and directing those complex physical movements,
Yeah.
who, or rather what ancient part of you, was actually driving that car, are we essentially hosting multiple minds inside one body?
The idea that the inner fish is the one merging onto the interstate is going to keep me thinking for a long time.
It's a trip, right?
It really is. Thank you so much for going on this deep dive with us today. It just proves that you should always keep asking those strangely simple questions. Because sometimes wondering about a bobbing head on an airplane is the exact key you need to unlock the entire evolutionary history of your own mind. Catch you next time.